It was only after a lapse of time that we were impelled to do good, and that is, after our hearts had received the inspiration of the Holy Spirit. Before then, our impulse was to do wrong, because we had deserted you. As a being, you are self-aware, and this consciousness allows you to hypothesize that the story you've created from a given set of memories is a consistent history, justified by a consistent narrative voice. As a unique individual having existed for a particular period and been subjected to an ontology of objects and properties, you can assert this with absolute certainty. Now Juno's sacred isle of Samos lay on the left. Delos and Paros were already behind them, and Labynthus was on their right hand, along with Calymne, rich in honey, when the boy Icarus began to enjoy the thrill of swooping boldly through the air. Drawn on by his eagerness for the open sky, he left his guide and soared upward, till he came too close to the blazing sun, and it softened the sweet-smelling wax that bound his wings together. The wax melted. Icarus moved his bare arms up and down, but without their feathers they had no purchase on the air. Even as his lips were crying his father's name, they were swallowed up in the deep blue waters which are called after him. He had a feeling that something not quite usual was beginning to happen, and that the world was undergoing a dreamlike alienation, becoming increasingly deranged and bizarre, and that perhaps this process might be arrested if he were to cover his face for a little and then take a fresh look at things. The problem is, it's just not enough to live according to the rules. Sure, you manage to live according to the rules. Sometimes it's tight, extremely tight, but on the whole you manage it. Your tax papers are up to date, your bills paid on time, you never go out without your identity card and the special little wallet for your visa. Yet you haven't any friends. Above all, there are the different payments you must make to the organisations that run different aspects of your life. You can fall ill into the bargain, which involves costs and more formalities. Nevertheless, some free time remains. What's to be done? How do you use your time? In dedicating yourself to helping people? But basically other people don't interest you. Listening to records? That used to be a solution. But as the years go by, you have to say that music moves you less and less. Taken in its widest sense, a spot of do-it-yourself can be a way out. But the fact is that nothing can halt the ever-increasing recurrence of those moments when your total isolation, the sensation of an all-consuming emptiness, the foreboding that your existence is nearing a painful and definitive end, all combine to plunge you into a state of real suffering. "But what about me?" she cried in a voice now hard again with fury. "I'm alive, but the women you're in love with are dead. Oh, don't try to deny it. They're your mistresses. I know they are. Every one of your painted ladies. I've known it from the start, before you and I were lovers. I'd only got to see the way you caressed their naked bodies, the way you sat mooning over them afterwards for hours on end. It was a morbid, stupid thing for any man to do, falling in love with a lot of pictures, trying to embrace an illusion. Why worry about such foolish things, she said, so long as you have me. You've made me pose for you. You wanted to make copies of my body, but why? Surely I'm worth more than all the copies you could ever make. At best, they're ugly, besides being as cold and stiff as many corpses. But I love you. I want you. Don't you understand? Why do I have to tell you all the time? Can't you feel it when I'm always near you, when I offer to pose for you, when I'm always wanting to touch you? Do you understand now? I love you. I'm alive, and I want you. Tired and yet intellectually stimulated, he meditated on the mysterious combination into which the canonical and the individual must enter for human beauty to come into being. Proceeded from this point to general problems of form and art, and concluded in the end that his thoughts and findings resembled certain seemingly happy inspirations that come to him in dreams, only to be recognized by the sober senses as completely shallow and worthless. And once more a sense of numbness came over him, a feeling that the world was somehow, slightly yet uncontrollably, sliding into some kind of bizarre and grotesque derangement. It was a feeling on which, to be sure, he was unable to brood further in present circumstances, for at this moment the thudding motion of the engine began again, and the ship, having stopped short so close to its destination, returned its passage along the San Marco Canal. But in the peculiar silence of this city of water, their voices seemed to be softly absorbed, to become bodiless, dissipated above the sea. As the warm breath of the sirocco touched him, As he leaned back on cushions over the yielding element, the traveller closed his eyes in the enjoyment of this lassitude, as sweet as it was unaccustomed. It will be a short ride, he thought, if only it could last forever. In a gently swaying motion, he felt himself gliding away from the cloud and the confusion of voices. He had a sudden premonition that all his life he would feel as he did at this moment. Emotion would pass him by, sometimes tantalizingly close. Others would experience happiness and despair, but such things would be unknown to him. They would not touch him. He felt as though his body was slipping into icy water. Still, everything seemed strangely calm. He felt separated from the world by a vacuum, molded to his body like a shell, a protective armor.
今日も新幹線をご利用くださいましてありがとうございます。この電車は小玉号新大阪行きです。終点新大阪までの各駅に停まります。
The morning's writing had overstimulated him. His work had now reached a difficult and dangerous point which demanded the utmost care and circumspection. The most insistent and precise effort of will and the productive mechanism in his mind, that motus animi continuus, which according to Cicero is the essence of eloquence, had so pursued its reverberating rhythm that he had been unable to halt it even after lunch, and had missed the refreshing daily siesta, which was now so necessary for him as he became increasingly subject to fatigue. For as I grew to manhood, I was inflamed with desire for a surfeit of hell's pleasures. Foolhardy as I was, I ran wild with lust that was manifold and rank. In your eyes my beauty vanished, and I was foul to the core. Yet I was pleased with my own condition, and anxious to be pleasing in the eyes of men. I went on my way, further and further from you, proud in my distress, and restless in fatigue, sowing more and more seeds, whose only crop was grief. Resting his head on the back of his chair, he had slowly turned it to follow the movements of the walking figure in the distance. Now he lifted it towards this last look, then it sank down on his breast so that his eyes stared up from below, while his face wore the inert, deep-sunken expression of a profound slumber. But to him it was as if the pale and lovely soul summoner out there was smiling to him, beckoning to him, as if he loosed his hand from his hip and pointed outwards, hovering ahead and onwards into an immensity rich with unutterable expectation. And as so often, he set out to follow him. Minutes passed, after he had collapsed sideways in his chair, before anyone hurried to his assistance. He was carried to his room, and later that same day the world was respectfully shocked to receive the news of his death.